I've seen people arrested for all sorts of messed up reasons. I've seen a number of cases where the wife or girlfriend catches the gear user stepping out and calls the police and says, "This son of a gun, you know what he's doing? He's got steroids. I can show you. Here's a picture of all his steroids in his room." I've seen people arrested for that, right?
Wow.
So, so I've represented a lot of personal users, and I still, if anybody is in trouble for personal use, or because they failed a drug test, let's say they're on probation, or they're a cop. I've represented a number of law enforcement officers and firefighters who were subjected to steroid tests, doping tests, and failed. And then, they're looking to take away their job. I represented a cop once who failed a steroid test because he tested positive for clenbuterol. And I'm like, wait a minute. The policy of the department is don't use steroids or growth hormone. That's right. So he tested positive for clenbuterol, which is a beta 2 agonist.
Yeah.
A bronchodilator used in some countries. We have albuterol here. Clenbuterol is used in other countries, may have a stimulant effect, but that's neither a steroid or growth hormone.
Right.
But we have a zero tolerance policy. I'm like, zero tolerance for steroids and growth hormone? Yes. But this isn't steroids or growth hormone, but we have a zero tolerance. It was this bizarre circular conversation that drove me crazy. Ultimately, I had to try the case. I spent a week in the trial room trying the case, calling witnesses. The city called witnesses. We went back and forth. He was ultimately exonerated because it was an insane case. But it shows that even this wasn't that long ago, and it shows that there's a continuing kind of information, disconnect on the part of some of the people who should know better. And that was a messed up situation. I represented the number one ranked middleweight boxer, Sam Solomon, a few years ago when he tested positive for a banned substance. And so I've done a lot. That was in a German case. It was in Dusseldorf, Germany. So, but now it's mostly underground lab situations. And for whatever reason, lately, in the last 6-8 months, a number of SARMs cases have come to me. It seems like FDA, don't forget, DEA deals with steroids, right? Because it's a controlled substance.
Sure.
SARMs, selective androgen receptor modulators, which we can talk more about, but they're not controlled. So it's the FDA that is in charge of policing the SARMs market. And for whatever reason, lately, they've gotten a little more aggressive. I've gotten a number of SARMs cases, more than I've had, before in a higher volume in a shorter period of time. I've probably handled more cases involving research chemicals than any other lawyer. And by research chemicals, as you know, there's a market where these websites will say these products that we're selling are for research purposes only, not to be used for human use. And that would make them chemicals and not drugs, if that was really what they were about. The problem is the devil's in the details. And so if the government can find enough facts that support that not for human use is more of a wink to avoid it actually being labeled a transaction involving drug, and by drug, I mean drug is defined in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act as something to affect the structure or function of the body other than food, something you ingest for those purposes. Well, the reason you're saying it's not for human use is, you couldn't sell it for human use because you're not a pharmacy. It's not FDA approved. So those guys wind up getting jammed up, and I've handled a lot of those cases. And there are some very unique issues that come up in those cases, which are, unfortunately, most lawyers have no clue about. And so I've gotten very, very good at handling those cases, and very effective at keeping people out of prison on those cases. And I enjoy a lot of the issues that come up in those cases. But those are sort of the areas of what I do. I also represent, kind of like my practice has expanded to basically a broader fitness and supplement related practice. I represent a number of sports energy and dietary supplements, sports nutrition brands on preventing them from doing things that would be problematic to either the government or to plaintiffs' class action lawyers who are always looking to file a lawsuit if they can find a way of squeezing some money out of a company that's trying to do the right thing. So I do a lot of that work as well. But like I said before, I love what I do. I'm kind of where exercise, nutrition, and fitness intersect with legal issues.